And welcome back to Realtor Reacts. I'm Christopher, your host today. I'm the Realtor in Realtor Reacts. This is part three, our first ever part three. The episode is called, what the heck am I calling this? Something about enforcement. Expectations and enforcement. Took me a moment. I apologize. I'm recording episode three right on the back end of episode two. So although you're getting these, a week apart, I'm doing them in succession so I don't lose my train of thought. Okay, we are almost wrapped up. We got about 15 minutes left on the core video. This is Mr. Rusty Nelson. It's been an interesting conversation this far. Thank you for coming back and joining us if this is your part three. Let's jump right in and see what else we can get into.
Districts that prohibit lawn ornaments. This is basic. District 3, with the exceptions of units 13, and it goes through all them. Districts 4 through 13. Like I said, these changes generally 1 and 2 are a little bit different. Districts 4 through 13 and probably 14 now are pretty much the same. Lawn ornaments and yard art for these districts may be placed in the following locations: inside the home. So you can have that big bird right inside your window, inside the lanai. And they even show pictures here in a second. I'll show it to you. On the concrete slab located underneath the roof of the front porch, not under the eaves of the home. So what they're saying is you can't put it on the side of the home. And they even give you a drawing here. It can go inside there, but not out in the bushes. I'm sorry, folks. I know a lot of people, you do this, and I actually think some of it looks really nice, but we'll talk about that at the end. And here's another drawing, and this shows where it would be allowed underneath there, I guess. And on the back, that kind of looks like represents approved area. And to learn more about this, call Community Standards. There's their phone number. Like I said, this is the people I went to that they would not let me talk to them. And you can find their building. It's right here, 984 Old Mill Run, Lake Sumter. It's a tiny hallway, and you have to go upstairs. Anyway, let's go back to the covenant. So lawn arts are prohibited except for seasonal displays. I'm really sorry about that. I know that's going to cause some problems, but that's just the way it is. Irrigation systems. Now, operation of irrigation systems. When I come down in the morning, I have my own lawn. I take care of my own lawn. I do my own watering and irrigation, and I also cut my own lawn, fertilizer it, and do everything else. And it looks good. I like it. I'll show you a picture of my front yard. And so, operation of irrigation system. The irrigation water distribution system is not a water on demand system. In other words, you don't get to use just all the water you want. Upon purchasing a home from the developer, owner will receive a schedule of dates and times during which irrigation water service will be available to the home site. Now, I will show you right now. I'll run out real quick. I'll cut this and then go do it. All right, so if you want to look, a lot of the homes will have right inside where your water control is. This is actually sand that I use to actually level out parts of my grass and kind of fill in some holes with potting soil. But if you open this up, you'll see right here, this tells you exactly what days and what time, spring, summer, that you should be watering. Now, for myself, I also have my unit has the Wi-Fi unit in there, so I can control that with the app on my phone while I'm away and monitor a lot of stuff that goes on. Anyway, that's it for the water. And you will notice that the person that lives next door to you actually has a different time. The person next to them has a different time. That way you're not all watering and flooding the road at the same time. So there's definitely a method to the madness. And so that's where my hours and time.
So another great point, right? I know these things exist, right? How closely they are observed in practice. Well, I know something about that too. But I will say this, and I didn't go through and read all of this here. I'm sure someone here they're going to denote something about exceptions because what happens? Lawns get damaged, right? And then you have to go in and you have to either reseed, resod, right? Maybe you have a chink bug infestation, right? Something occurs that one of the zones in the yard requires more watering or watering on a different schedule than what is prescribed. Okay, exceptions, right? You're going to need more water to get those seeds to take hold, right? Or to get that sod to root properly, whatever the case, right? So you're going to get instructions from whatever professional it is that's remedying, that issue when the lawn gets damaged. Um, it's kind of a wonderful thing that enforcement is based on complaint, okay? Because when you get into stuff like this, in my experience, I've never heard of a situation where somebody was so about their deed restrictions, right? That they were filing complaints on overuse of the irrigation system. Now that I say that, I'm sure it has happened somewhere at some time. All right, let's jump back in.
Where my hours and times are now for myself, I take those times and I divide them up into two sections, and that way I don't get a bunch of runoff. Ownership and maintenance and stuff like that, maintenance obligations. This is a big thing. Got to keep it up, and you got to take care of the easements. Make sure you check these things in here because it talks about who has to maintain what on each side of the fence. Here we go, section 2 of that. If an owner does not adhere to the above regulations, then the work may be performed on behalf of the owner by the developer or its designee, but the developer or its designee shall not be obligated to perform such work. So, in other words, you can complain as much as you want. It's only if they decide to have somebody do it that it's going to get done. And in my mind, minute I complain, those people should be warned. And if not, the developer or its quote designee, they can just designate somebody to do it. They should come in, cut the person's lawn, and start billing them for it. And when that house gets sold, that'll end up getting paid for because whoever the house, hopefully it'll have a lien against it. Like I said, I'm not an attorney. That's just my thought process, the way it should be. There you go. And the cost shall be charged to the owner. Okay, parking restrictions.
I understand Rusty's outlook. I get it, right? It's we have rules. Maybe the problem with that is that some people aren't aware of all the rules all the time. Okay, some people don't mean to be out of compliance, right? And when you take this hard nosed approach of sending people on to other people's private property, okay, to perform functions that they did not order, simply because you have the power to do so as a governing body, can create incidents that wind up in newspapers. And I've said it on a previous episode, okay? We're the villages. Anything that happens here winds up in the. We got a lot of eyes on us, right? The last thing we need is to catch a reputation for the CDD, forcing regulations and forcing remediation on issues without giving due process and due time and opportunity to work. Okay. But I understand where Rusty's coming from. It's just when you take that and you apply it to such a broad geographical space and such a large population, I think you'll agree that it's gonna cause more issues than it's gonna solve. I would hope. I would hope. Let's jump back in.
Restrictions. This is huge. All outside structures for storage and utility purposes must be permanently constructed in addition and like construction in the originally constructed. So basically, you can add on stuff onto your house, but no trucks in excess of 3/4 ton. Now think about it. 3/4 ton truck is not that big, right? 3/4 ton is not that big. Size, boats, trailers, aircraft, recreational vehicles, or any vehicle other than a private, non commercial vehicle. If you got a commercial license on the back of your car, this pertains to you. They'll be parked, stored, or otherwise maintained on any home site or street, except for service vehicles located on a temporary basis while performing the service for a resident. Vehicles or boats fully enclosed in garages on temporary uh, garages located on the home site. So that looks like that's good. No vehicles incapable of operation shall be stored on any home site, or nor shall any junk, I'm going to jump over here, vehicles or equipment be kept on any home site. No owner of a home site shall repair, restore any motor vehicles, boats, trailers, aircraft, blah, 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 on a dedicated or reserved area except for emergency repairs and only to the extent necessarily to move that sucker. There you go. Now, I am not an attorney, but I'm going to read this anyway. Um, Waiver and release. When a building or other structure has been erected or its construction substantially advanced, and the building is located on any home site or building plot in a manner that constitute a violation of the covenants and restrictions, the developer or developer's designee may release the home site or building plot or parts of it from any part of the covenants. The developer or developer's designee shall not give such a release except for a violation that is it determines to be minor or insubstantial violation in its sole judgment. So, in other words, if you build a whole addition onto the side of your house without developer's permission, and they ask you to take it down, it's your problem. I'll say it again. Anything you do on the outside of that house, go to the folks and have it, the architectural review board, ARC. I'll cover that some more maybe in another video if you like. Put that down there and I'll show you how you do that. It is really, really, really
I want to go back and read that a little bit more, developer. Okay. Sorry for the silence there. Um, Generally, when there's a waiver and release, and this is a power granting device, right, within the deed restrictions, right. I suspect that this exists. Rusty's looking at it from a violation standpoint, right? This probably exists so that the CDD can waive any accidental restriction violations based on the initial home construction, right? So they have power to relieve themselves of any obligation during their ownership window when the home is new, before it's been sold. And once it's released, right? So they can then sell that home, right, without it being in violation of the deed restrictions because they, at their sole discretion, can basically cover up their own boo boo. Oops, we planted this wrong. Oops, that corner is just outside the setbacks on the survey, right? Whatever the case may be, this is there so that they can release themselves from liability when building new home construction, and it's happened, right? Nothing's perfect. Okay, these guys are very good at what they do, but nothing's perfect. Could it be utilized in the way that Rusty is talking about? Yeah, it probably could be, but people know ARC exists, and if they don't know ARC exists, they're going to find out real quick from their neighbors, particularly if they are trying to get permits for some type of external structure, right? Most general contractors know to pull permits. Um, you're going to have to, and you're going to have to go through that process. And so if the owner doesn't know, the contractors will, hopefully. Um, all right, let's jump back in here. Although you shouldn't rely on the contractors to cover you on that. But let's jump back in.
they ask you to take it down, it's your problem. I'll say it again. Anything you do on the outside of that house, go to the folks and have it, the architectural review board, ARC. I'll cover that some more maybe in another video if you like. Put that down there and I'll show you how you do that. It is really, really, really easy. Okay, water features. Okay, this is a warning that any of us that bought a home by the water, which is myself, You do. The level of the water contained within such water features at any given time, like right now, it was pretty dry at times, subject to fluctuation due to drought. So basically, you're not guaranteed to have water in your backyard. Here's a big one, the next one. Section 2 under general provisions. Section 2, enforcement. All owners except the developer, shall have the right and quote the duty to prosecute in proceedings at law or in equity against any person or persons violating or attempting to violate any covenants, conditions, or restrictions, either to prevent him or them from so doing, or to recover damages or any property damages for such a violation. So, in other words, let's say somebody violates the restriction where they have changed the grading on a um, courtyard on the other side of your wall, and all of a sudden the water backs up against your house and goes into your house, or you end up getting termites in your house because the plants are high up on that side of the house. That person or that landlord is going to be responsible for the damage that is done because this is all in breach of the covenants, and they will.
In civil matters, any person, for any reason, largely, can file suit. You don't need it in the covenant and restrictions, but that's effectively what this is saying, right? Bear in mind, even in civil cases, right? It's an evidentiary process. You have to prove it. Not beyond a reasonable doubt, it's not criminal, right? But you do have to prove it. Your opinion alone or your interpretation thereof is only relevant if the judge agrees with you. Right? So, long story short, can you sue somebody for if you think they did you wrong? Yeah, you can. Absolutely. So that wraps that up. I try not to make declarative statements. I'm very careful about this. You know, as a when I was younger in my career, right, I used to read things and I used to think I understood what they meant and how they would be applied. And what I discovered as I got further along in my career is that's a bad idea, right? There's always exceptions, right? There's always disputes, there's always arguments to be made, and the outcome is indeterminable, right? So for me to sit there across the table from you at any point in time and say, well, if this happens, as it pertains to the outcome of a lawsuit, right, or civil proceedings, um, is not appropriate. It's not responsible, and it sets bad expectations. Okay, am I liable for that? Probably not, right? You know, whether you're taking advice from a real estate professional or from your friend down the street or your neighbor out back, right? Liability, you know, your actions are going to be your actions. So yes, this statement, as far as I can tell, basically says you have the right to sue somebody in the event that they violate something, or you believe that they violate something. All right, because this is going to go on and talk about costs and attorney's fees. I bet you. Let me see. Yep, there's the words: attorney's fee, costs, proceedings. Yep. Here we go. Yeah, similar verbiage in the purchase contract. All right, let's go ahead and finish up here.
Be responsible for the attorney's fees. Now, I'm not a lawyer, need to get one and worry about that. So that's about it. Now, let's talk about something here real quick. All right, that was long, but I did read through that so you don't have to read through it. Once again, they're going to be different for different districts, but I'm going to go over a few things. I'm going to kind of recap some things really quick. You remember in there, it said it's the duty of the people in the neighborhood to report these things because if you don't do it, absolutely nobody else is going to do it. In my head, the people that are disregarding it, whether they know it or not, then they shouldn't get mad at the person that is actually reporting it because they're doing what they were told to do by the covenants. It's their job to go do that. as one of the people in the neighborhood, the same as it would be for them to pick
I don't disagree with Rusty. And I, this is part three. In part one, he had mentioned something to the effect of, 80-year-old single woman, 100 pounds soaking wet, and people almost getting into fistfights over trying to enforce the restrictions with their neighbors in person, right? I mean, we could argue intent, right? We could argue, hey, I just want to make you aware. This is for educational purposes. You might want to look into, this segment of your deed restrictions. Of course, you're going to have people who are ornery. You're going to have people who, you can't tell them nothing, right? They don't want to hear it. Okay. You're going to have people who aren't very good neighbors. That's not unique to the villages, unfortunately. Um, that's just it is what it is, right? And so you're left with reporting. Okay. I don't know what the right answer is there. I don't know if you should report first. I don't know if you should have a conversation first, and then report if you're left with no alternative. In which case, the autonomy of it, the anonymous portion of it, would no longer really be a factor. I will say this: if you are the person in your neighborhood that is constantly sending out reports on your neighbors, it's not going to that anonymous thing. It's not going to hold up very long because your neighbors are going to start talking and they're going to figure it out eventually who it is when everybody because neighborhoods talk. It's somebody's going to start investigating something at some point. Listen, Rusty wants everyone to take the position that it's your duty to uphold these things, and he's not wrong in that regard because nobody else is going to do it. Nobody else can. Okay, it's your neighborhood too, right? You have a voice, right? That's how the system is set up. The only thing I would add to that is to remember these are your neighbors. Okay, if you invest the time in building a relationship with them, you probably can sit down and have a conversation. That doesn't require you getting some type of authority involved. If you can't, well, then they really haven't left you any other options. And that's unfortunate. Let's wrap up.
for them to pick up a piece of trash that was laying on the ground, you would think, yeah, you should have picked it up, not just leave it there. Well, you should report these things. And it's not like you're tattling on somebody. That person already broke the rules. They already set themselves up to be in that position. And things are really simple on the outside of your house. When in doubt, just call the folks up there at the ARC and get a review of what you want to do. I thought I would get this out there because I saw a lot of stuff in the forums where people are arguing back, well, I should know who's accusing me. It's not accusing you. Those rules that are there are so blatant in your face and easy to read that it's not something.
I have to disagree. I have to disagree. It is an accusation because it's not proofed, right? That's all it is. It's an accusation. We're filing a complaint, and even with the letters that I've seen, it says you may be in violation. Okay, it's not proved. We can read. We can all read. Rusty can read. I can read. You can read. We can all read. We all understand what the text says, right? We can read it, right? But what I'm telling you is that there's more to it. It goes further out than that, and there's deeper. There's underpinning laws, right? How is this going to be enforced? Where's the proper venue? Who are the parties going to be? What is the precedence? There's a lot more that's going to go into this. It's not simply the text as written. Okay. And people who want to fight are going to fight. So I have to disagree. It is an accusation until somebody with the authority to make a determination makes that determination. All right, let's jump back in.
Not somebody accusing you. They're doing their job as a neighbor, like everybody else in the neighborhood. They're doing their job. So you shouldn't really care. I did tell somebody one. I had a friend of mine that had, I'll call it a lawn, I call them lawn tchotchkes. He had something in his yard and we were talking about it. I said, well, actually, that's not legal right there. He goes, it's not? He goes, I'm going to take it out then. And he was dead serious. He didn't know. And he said, I'm going to take it out. Now, with all that said, right, I there's some people that have some really nice lawn art or whatever you want to call it. And there's rules about it, just the way you saw. They get kind of get into detail, like planters. They can be a planter, but they have to have plants in them. You can't just have a planter there and have something else in it and attach a plant to it to make it right. It doesn't work that way. There are some things that I think that really look nice, that really look Florida, maybe the way I dreamed of it when I was a kid and I'd see it. And if it was me doing it, me personally, I'm not worried about it. I don't want to have lawn art in my yard, but I think some of it looks really nice. There are some sculptures I see that are out there. I'm sure those were approved by Park. But I would go and try to find out, is there a way that we could get our covenants changed so that we could have lawn art approved just the way we would have a statue approved or a some kind of modern piece of rock art or a rock with your name engraved in it or something like that. I've seen people do in their landscaping. Really nice stuff. And I'm sure that was approved, but maybe, and I don't know this, you can do it. They could set something up where it would be part of the covenant where you would get one of these nice pieces of lawn art approved as long as it was maybe two to a side of your home and no further out than the natural lawn bed of your house. The lawn bed that's attached to your house, so you don't have people putting them out in the middle of their yard, some rules like that, and maybe you could get that changed. I don't know. I don't know how the developer would feel about that or the governing bodies would feel about that, but I think that would actually be a good idea, but that's me personally. But for the time being, the rules say that you're not allowed to do these certain things, and that kind of sets up the confrontation. Well, so and so got to put that in their yard. Why can't I put the Oscar Mayer Wiener truck in my driveway? Exaggerated, I agree, but still nonetheless. Anyway, I hope that helps some people out. It was I did a lot of research on it. Like I said, I did try to talk to the folks up there. I couldn't get them to talk to me, and I went up really nice to them, and they just shooed me off. And just the way it was. I'm telling you the way it was. I wish it was different, but that's it. Happened to me a couple of times. Anyway, yeah, I'm not a bad looking head guy. I generally wanted to know for the rest of you what few questions that I had, and that's it. They would not answer them. Anyway, thank you so much for hanging around this long. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it if you got this far. Please subscribe and like the channel. It helps out so much. Helps me get these things out. They do take a while to do. Anyway, like I always say, I will either see you down here in the villages, stop by and say hello if I'm out there. It's always fun to do. Or I'll see you back here on YouTube. You guys have a wonderful day.
All right. If you're not subscribed to Rusty, please take some time, go out and subscribe to Rusty. He's worth the time investment, in my opinion. I got a lot of respect for Rusty. I like Rusty very much, and I appreciate the time and diligence that he puts into his craft here on YouTube. I talked about the CDD or standards and communities, right? He does bring up an interesting point, and I actually was thinking about this a few weeks back about what would that process look like. I don't know, right? I don't know what would the process look like to amend the covenant and restrictions, because as I said before, these were authored and standardized, right? And then they were distributed. So would it be a situation where you'd have to go to your five seat board, right, to get that process started? I'm sure they're having regular meetings, right? And people within those districts are probably notified in some form or fashion. I'm sure there's a method to do it. I just don't know how it works. It's been interesting. First three-parter. We made it. Guys, thank you so much for joining us here on Realtor Reacts. I hope this has been entertaining, insightful, informative. All the things that we go to YouTube for, right? Take care of yourselves. Take care of others where you can. Feel free to bounce around on the channel and check out some other videos. We got some gold in them there hills. Right about now, my wife should be putting up some more videos here for you. We always appreciate you stopping in and spending some time with us. Come back and see us next week if you will. Have a great one.